Good afternoon. My name is Małgorzata Kurzępa. I'm a founder and director of Fair House Investments, the company which invests in properties for 7 years in UK and over 10 years in Europe, let's say. Last week I started my talk about situation when you own the property and how to prepare your property for renting. And last week I told you about the main aspects how to prepare it, and now I will tell you exactly how to prepare the property for the tenancy, for the tenants. So of course, in the situation when you don't want to use letting agency, because for some people for some reasons don't want to use them. So I don't know, maybe you had a bad experience in the past, or you just want to save some money on it, or you want to gain your experience, or you are already experienced landlord and you just don't need it. But in this case probably you wouldn't listen. I just realized that this subject is very, very wide, and when I tried to record it, it appeared very long. So I had to divide it into 3 parts. So now it will be how to rent the property without letting agency, part 1. And today I will tell you about staging, how to compare prices at the local market, how to prepare the advert, and where to advertise. Next week, or in next weeks, I will tell you about the situation when the prospective tenants are calling you and what to do then, how to choose the best tenants or tenant for your property, searches, how to check if your how to qualify your tenants. Next thing would be a short hold tenancy. So what kind of agreement you should use, and what should be written there. Quiet tenancy and right of access. So it's basically about responsibilities from both sides, from the landlords and from the tenants about the properties. Final agreements. So what you have to do right before or in the time of signing the contract, or right before the tenant would be moving into the property, or right after he moved, from the landlord's point of view. What to do with a deposit, and the final aspect, what the tenant has to do when he's just moved into the property. So today I will start with staging. So depends on the situation, if you want to rent your flat, your property, furnished or unfurnished. Remember that the standard, basic standard for UK is that there are always furniture in the kitchen and in the bathroom. From my experience, if the property is located down south, the washing machine is always included. However, up north, especially in northeast, where I've seen and I rent some properties, the washing machine is usually not included. I think this is a consequence of the fact that the rental income up north is much lower than down south. So in a case if anything in the flat needs repair, it's a huge cost for the landlord. So the less number of equipment in the flat, the lower chance that something would be broken. So this is how it is. Another fact is that if your property is centrally located, it's for young people who move for work or who move quite often. Remember that these people would rather prefer the rental property which is furnished. I was a good example of such a person, because for many years I was moving every year from place to place because of my job. And of course I didn't travel with eventually I started traveling with my TV screen, but I didn't travel with my bed, I didn't travel with mattress, I didn't travel with cupboards. You know, of course I prefer a nice flat, completely furnished or almost completely furnished. I remember a few occasions when after I moved in, I just asked landlord to buy some things, and when he decided that they are really needed in the flat, like a shelf in the bathroom or things like this, these are not expensive things, but I told him it would be needed, and he agreed to buy it. So first thing, furnished, unfurnished. The second thing is that if you want to rent a property, you need professional pictures. It would be great if you have ones, let's say. Not all my properties have professional pictures, but the reasons why that I just decided I don't need them. First of all, because they are usually rented for long term, and if I take pictures once, the moment when I have to take another pictures, it would be probably a long time break. And the second thing, probably the property would need less or small refurbishment anyway, so it would look different than couple years before. So for these properties, I just took random pictures. You can check everything on my website, Fair House Investments. All my properties are there. And the second thing is that if some properties are so attractive, you just put random pictures and they are rented like this, you know. So this is another thing. But in general, I strongly advise taking professional pictures, hire a professional photographer. It costs usually between £600 to £1,000. But then when your tenants move and you will be looking for another tenants, you could use the same pictures for some time or for many times. The third thing is staging. Proper staging. So remember, even if you rent unfurnished, put some furniture just for pictures, put some cushions, put the flowers at the table, take care of proper light, make it look like a home, because pictures are the most important thing in an advert, and your potential tenants would like to see a nice environment, and it would be easier for them to imagine themselves living in such a nice space. We finished with staging. The second thing is you have to assess, you have to find the proper price for your property. How to assess it? So go to the available sources like in rental properties portals. Go to Rightmove, go to Zoopla, and double check the properties in your neighborhood. Take under consideration the number of rooms. You have to find a property which is most alike yours. So the same number of rooms, the same number of bathrooms, best the same location or similar location, or the same distance from metro station, underground station, from train station. Features like garden, features like balcony, parking space. So you try to find something most similar to yours and check the asking price. Remember, go for feature option called Let Agreed. Then you will find the properties which has been rented, and you will see the true rental price, because if you only go and check the properties which are advertised for renting, maybe some of the landlords are not realistic about the value of their properties, and the asking price is not necessarily the price which is realistic. So this is why if you go to Let Agreed or just Let, then you will find the true prices for the properties. The prices shouldn't differ more than £175 per calendar month. And if you find something completely different, outrageous, like outside the scale, just cut them out, you know, because it means that there is something not typical in these properties, and they are probably not like your property if yours is quite typical. Third thing about an advert. How should the advert look like? How should you write it? So first of all, remember, you can't make any mistakes. No grammar mistakes, Don't describe features which your flat or property of house doesn't have. You have to be honest. If you don't want to write about something, just don't write it if something is not worth to mention. So try to be unique, but not too much. Don't try to be too funny. You have to put into your advert certain aspects. So how much is the rent? You can put expected weekly rent or monthly rent, but remember that our tenants would be paying us per month. So to avoid situations like I've been to once, when the tenant said that I charge him too much because I charge him for more than, because the month is 4 weeks, while actually month is 4.5, almost half week. So to avoid such a situation, just give the monthly rent, and then this would be what the tenant would later pay you. I've realized that some properties up north, I don't know why, are also some extremely posh and luxury, and probably this is why expensive properties in London, they show the rental prices per week, but I think it's just, to reduce the shock for the potential tenants. So I strongly advise put the rental, monthly rental price. When the property is available, this is very important. Usually, sometimes there is in an advert, people say available immediately. Sometimes it's available from particular date. Because sometimes you have to give the time to your potential tenants to cancel or wait until they finish their current agreement. Another information is we already talked about it, if the property is furnished or unfurnished. What are the extras to pay for the tenants? So if there is no information about extra payments, it means the tenant would be responsible for the payment of all bills, which would be water, gas, electricity, council tax, TV license, internet. Maybe I forgot about something, but mostly these. And some properties, I don't know why I'm talking about flats all the time. Some properties have some of the bills included. I don't know how it works, but I've seen several times that, for example, water is included, and the tenant doesn't have to pay extra for water. So please, if your property have something like this, put it into the advert, because it would reduce the monthly payments from the tenant. And even if water bill is like 20 or 30 pounds per month, when you count it in the whole year, it could be a big amount of money for the tenant. And if he could reduce his tenancy, it would be great. It could definitely put your property higher in a scale. What are your expectations about the tenant? If you don't want tenants with dogs, write it down. If you only want non-smokers, write it down. If you think your flat is very, very small and it's only suitable for single, write it down. If you think it's not too small, good for the couple but not for the family, also please write it down. If you're ready to rent to students, if you're ready to rent to people using so-called DSS, so people who for whose tenancy whose tenancy is paid by council, please write it down. The next thing are professional pictures. We already talked about it. Then description of the property. How many rooms, how many bathrooms, if there is a garden, if there is a balcony, the same features you were taken under consideration when you compare the prices. The neighborhood. What is attractive in the neighborhood? Maybe there is a park, maybe there is a good school, maybe there is church, maybe there is a hospital. Transport links. How far is a metro station? How far is a train station? If there are plenty buses, write down the numbers. Next option you can put into your advert is floor plan. I know that most of the adverts don't have floor plan, but I would say when I was looking for my properties to rent, it was quite attractive because it's completely different when you only read the description, and different when you just physically see the picture how the apartment or the property looks like. EPC, Energy Performance Certificate. Usually it's added to the advert. You will have to give it to the tenant later anyway. Remember that now we could only advertise and rent properties between A and E. Below E, they are not suitable for rent. Holding deposit. If your property would be available, let's say in 2 weeks' time, or if the tenant is really interested but he cannot make a decision now, you can ask him to pay you the holding deposit, which would be reduced, taken from the first rent. The second deposit, called damage deposit, is the proper deposit, and this is the deposit which we have to put into the scheme later. And usually the damage deposit is equal 5 weeks of rent for most of the properties. And that's it, what you have to put into the advert. We can't take any other payments from the tenants, so I think if it's about the advert, that's it. I only have one more thing for you, one more information. I really like maintenance with pets. So if you are a pet lover, a dog lover, cat lover, don't stop your tenants from having one. You know, these people, it's very difficult for them to find suitable property. So usually, I mean, in my opinion, they're just better tenants, you know. They stay longer in the property and they care more because they know they will stay longer. So as I said, if you have nothing against pets, don't just write down no pets because most of the people does it. Think what is best for you and for your business. And the last thing, where to advertise. So we have many portals like Rightmove, Zoopla on the market where you can put your advert. I don't remember, to be honest, how much it costs. You have to check the current prices. You could also use Purple Bricks, which are online agents. Or OpenRent. OpenRent is a website for private landlords, and if you use OpenRent, then you could contact directly the landlord, or tenants contact directly the landlords. You could also use letting agency only to let your property, not to take care of the maintenance later if you want to do the last thing by yourself. But I'm a little bit skeptical about such options because if they, of course they're taking responsibility for the tenant, but the truth is that if they don't do the maintenance of the property later, this is not their best interest, you know, to find you the best tenant. So I can't say anything wrong about them. I never use such option. I just feel that it would be a little conflict of interest, you know, because they just want to find you a tenant. So the next options, remember about Facebook and Gumtree. If you're really desperate and for some reason you cannot rent your property, you think it's nice, everything was done properly, there is staging, beautiful pictures, descriptions, everything, and still there is a very low interest, it could happen, maybe this is just this time of the year, then you should consider, or you could consider, paying for your advertising. And you can do it via Facebook, you can do it via Gumtree. Or if you don't know how to do it, I strongly advise you to find a professional or ask a friend or someone who knows how to advertise on Facebook, and they will help you to find to put a proper advert and pay equally, to not overpay for your advert. Mm. If you're ready to rent to tenants, you can contact the local university, their accommodation department. Maybe they have some students looking for private accommodation if they don't have enough space belonging to the university. And if you're ready to rent to DSS, then you can also contact local council, and maybe your property would be perfect for them, and the council will pay always on time for them. So this is also always an option to consider. I have a feeling I'm talking too long now, so this was part 1, and I will come back to you next week with the rest of the subject, how to rent the property without letting agency, and I will be talking about what to do when you already found prospective tenants, how to choose the best tenant for your property, how to do searches, what is AST, assured short hold tenancy, what means quiet tenancy, rights and rights of access, final agreement, so what you have to do when you sign the contract and before or right after the tenant moved to the property, but from landlord point of view, then what you have to do with deposit, and the last thing, what the tenant has to do, what are his responsibilities when they move to the property. Thank you very much. My name is Małgorzata Kurzępa. I'm an owner of Fair House Investments, the property which invests in properties in UK for over 7 years. And recently I also decided to share my knowledge with anyone who is interested. And if you have any questions about properties, if you find anything interesting in what I said, if you don't agree with me as well, please write it in the comment below this video. I would be more than happy to answer all your questions. Thank you very much and have a great Sunday. Bye bye.